Hello, everybody. It's Gareth here again, and it's been a little while, so welcome back. Yeah, I've been off a little bit because of the fact that I've been a little sick. Yes, little is an understatement. Since about Saturday, yes. Still not 100% quite yet. But hey, I thought I needed to get some video out because we had a pretty big weekend last weekend with Blizzcon and all that. In fact, I was quite heavily involved with HearthstoneElite.com. We were live blogging the Fireside Dev Chat. So if you'd like a sort of blow-by-blow account of how that happened, feel free to go to HearthstoneElite.com and just click the BlizzCon Live tab on the page, and you should see, I know the Elitist did actually I did both live blogs, to be perfectly honest, of the opening ceremony and the Fireside Dev Chat, because the Dev Chat I think is more important because, you know, those weren't available to everybody for free. But Saturday after that I ended up getting pretty damn sick, and yeah, I've been booked off pretty much since till yesterday for work. So yeah, I'm back. Like I said, not 100% yet, but feeling a lot better. So that's always good news. Medication seems to actually be working now. You know, it's kind of scary though when the doctor gives you medication for it and then gives you a second, you know, medication for it and says if the first one doesn't work, try that one. Slightly terrifying. But yeah, so far it seems like I'm doing well. And I haven't had a cup of coffee. This is my first cup of coffee in 5 days. So yeah. Boy, have I missed that. Yum yum. Anyway, so yeah, we're not here to talk about my, you know, private life and funny stuff. We're here to talk about the stuff that happened at BlizzCon for Hearthstone and how that is going to affect the game. So there was quite a lot of info that came out of that. Some of it just a bit, you know, about stuff in general and nothing major. Some of it was pretty big news. So yeah, we're going to just go through some of that information. And I'm using the live blog I did as a reference so that we can talk about the stuff. So, first of all, the biggest piece of news that came out was open beta. Yes, they announced news about the open beta. Probably they're hoping to have it by next month. And then immediately after that they said maybe January. So, you know, at least we know that at the latest it looks like it's going to be January, but all the people still waiting to get in that haven't gotten closed beta invites should hopefully be getting into the open beta by next month, or January at the latest. So at least you can go and enjoy your holidays and not suddenly get into a game and you can't play it because you're away somewhere. But yeah, that's one of the biggest pieces of news that came out. So I'm actually really looking forward to that because it'll just make the game more interesting and more dynamic and lots more players and really help develop that meta game an absolute ton, because the more people you have, the better it can be. It's as simple as that. I mean, you know, even, and we'll get to this, but even you know, who was it? Eric Dodds was saying that the metagame right now, because there's such a small amount of people and the game's so new, that the metagame is really switching up and down at absolute ton. You know, with more people, things can settle down, the metagame can kind of get settled, and it'll be easier for them to balance things once they actually see some proper stats about, you know, win rates and loss rates for the classes and all that good stuff. Oh, yeah, like I said, not 100% yet. Anyway. So, the stuff I'm also talking about is mostly based on that dev chat that they had, the panel that had Ben Brode and Eric Dodds in it. So, open beta was the first big thing that they talked about. Now, they also went into a lot of discussion about sort of the philosophy behind the game and how they got going. So, one of the big things that I got from this is, and you can kind of tell anyway, but the Hearthstone team is the smallest development team at Blizzard. Apparently there are only around 15 to 20 people in the team. And they made the comparison to show that WoW, for example, has about 60 developers working on Diablo, about 75. So, you know, that scale just shows that the game isn't exactly enormous. So, you know, again, if you start having, if you're experiencing issues with the game, especially while it's in beta, just be kind to the guys. I mean, it's not a highly complicated game. It's nowhere near the scale of something like a Diablo or a WoW. But having only around 15 people to work on even a game like this has limits. And from all the other stuff that happened at BlizzCon, there were teams that they called in every now and then to provide specific portions of the game, like the music and sound and all that. But the permanent development team is only 15, which sounds like a lot of people, but it actually isn't. I mean, I do work in development myself and understand the dynamics of team size and all that kind of stuff. And 15 is not a hell of a lot when you're working with a game like this, which has so many different components. You know, you've got stuff on the server that they need to manage. You've got, you know, database stuff they need to manage. You've got UI stuff. You've got, game design and programming specifically as well. You know, the interactions between the cards. You've got things like the card design. There's an actually ton of things that they need to do. And a team of 15, for a team of 15, they're actually doing pretty damn nicely, I thought. The other really cool stuff that they talked about, well, for one, they mentioned that Blizzard as a whole actually really loves CCGs, and they even showed some pictures of Mike Morhaime back in the early days of Blizzard sitting down on the floor playing Magic the Gathering with other people. But besides that, right, they had a discussion about the Hearthstone goals. Now, this is where things get interesting, because if you bear their goals in mind, you could probably see where the game's going to be going in the future. So one thing that if you've played the game, you've probably noticed as well, that the game is kind of simplistic in its mechanics. It doesn't have, a ton of rules and all this arcane, card text that you're kind of confused about unless somebody explains it to you and all that kind of stuff. And that was one of their goals as well, to, make a CCG that anybody could just pick up and start playing. And to be very honest, I think they have, succeeded pretty nicely. They've said things like the other side is that the mechanics of the game are incredibly simple, but you can see, even playing the game for about an hour, you can see there's quite a lot of depth in the game. And that's thanks to the way that they've developed their synergies for the game, the way the cards can interact and work together. And that for them was apparently another very important facet of the game, that even if a concept was too complicated to keep the game simple and make it good for everyone, but it removed a lot of depth, then they'd try to relook at that effect and try to simplify it in a way that retained that depth. So it's a fine line where you want, the more mechanics you introduce, it does introduce more depth, but it also introduces more complication to the mechanics of the game. So it's a very fine line that you need to tread, and I'm excited by that idea, because if you can make a game like Hearthstone, a card game, really get into the broader market, you have to keep the mechanics simple, and many games have shown this. It's one of the reasons I think that World of Warcraft, for example, is still quite as popular as it is, and was more so in the past, because the mechanics is actually really simple in WoW compared to other games. Just playing the game and questing, it's far simpler than a lot of other MMOs that I've seen. So I like the fact that they're focusing on simplicity but depth at the same time. Now that's going to obviously cause problems, because I've seen in things like the forums, for example, people have talked about, what about the mechanic of making your opponent discard cards? And they in fact talked about that specifically in the dev chat. They said that things like making people discard cards is not something they want to introduce. So why not? Well, the basic idea that they realized is that if you're the guy with that make your enemy discard cards, if you're in possession of that card, damn, that's a lot of fun for you. Drop that on the table and make your opponent discard cards. Ooh, feels good. But if you're the guy that has to discard those cards, that's not a lot of fun. And that's the kind of thing that they've also said they want to focus on, that whether you win or you lose, you still have fun. And I can attest to that. I mean, I've had some losses where I'm like, God damn it, and then I hate it. But there are most of the time, if I lose a game, I'm like, damn, I almost won that one, but damn, that was a good game to play. You still enjoy the experience of playing the game, even if you lose badly. You get to see how well another player can play, and you appreciate that. So even if you lose, you still enjoy the game a lot. And keeping things in the game that make it fun for both is kind of important for the game to continue to be popular. I mean, if you're not such a good player, or you're a very new player to the game and you're losing consistently, you still want to be able to sit back and go, damn, I keep losing, but I'm having so much fun. And that's going to keep people coming back and playing, and that's great for the game as a whole, and this Hearthstone community that's starting to be built now around it. And on a side note of that, I was watching the Warcraft sound panel, and they were talking some of the Hearthstone stuff there as well. And one of the things they mentioned was how when they were developing the music and the sound for the game, at one point they had sound where the sound developers, the sound designers had put together, if you lose, they put together a sound where the sort of the crowd in the inn would laugh at you and jeer at you and make fun of you for losing. And apparently the developers of the game, when they heard this sound that the guys had developed, were horrified, because obviously that's no fun. You don't want to lose a game and then have this crowd in the inn, like, laugh at you and make fun of you. That's no good. That's not fun. So they downplayed that a bit, obviously, but that just shows how they're focused on making sure that everybody has fun, win or lose. You're still having a great time. You still want to carry on playing. And I can attest to that because for me, for example, I love StarCraft 2. It's a fantastic RTS, and I've played single player quite a lot. I haven't played online a hell of a lot personally, because the problem with online play for something like StarCraft is you have to play a hell of a lot of the game to get good at it, so to go up the ranks and up the ladder. The problem for me is that I always have that ladder anxiety, they call it. And I think it's predominantly because when you lose a game of StarCraft, you don't always feel like you've had a great ton of fun. It's fantastic fun to win a game of StarCraft, but somebody always has to lose, especially on a 1v1, or even obviously 2v2, but you know what I mean. And that's why I haven't really gone into StarCraft 2 on the multiplayer side and stuff like that, because I don't know. I played it a few times and I don't really find it a hell of a lot of fun, just because to get to the point where I can play well enough to win a fair amount of games, I'm going to be having such a horrid time before that. But that's what they try to correct with Hearthstone, to make it something that you can always enjoy playing. Okay, enough about that. I'm really going on a tangent here. But anyway, so one of the other things that they mentioned about, and we're going to be looking at more interesting stuff, so don't worry. I'm just going through some of the basic stuff that they talked about at first. But one of the other goals was that this is a game based on World of Warcraft, as far as the lore is concerned. So they do want to make sure they bring across the flavor of Warcraft without necessarily all that intense, epic nature of it. It needs to be a casual, fun game. So if you look at things like the classes and the cards in those class decks, and even on the neutral side of things, you can see that they have quite successfully, I think, brought across the flavor of those classes. The only one I think might be a little off is the warrior. That's just on the hero ability of the warrior. I think that might be a little bit off. But otherwise, I think they've pretty much gotten the aspect of those classes quite nicely. Especially things like the priest, where you can do things like heal up stuff and then switch your hero power to do damage instead. Priest can do that, and have shadow word type spells that cause a lot of damage. So it's pretty close, and I think they're succeeding very nicely with that. One of the examples they gave was the rogue class, which has all this combo stuff. The rogue is the type of class that comes out of the shadows and sneaks up on its opponent, and then does a ton of damage all at once. Which is kind of what the rogue is, with all the combo style of cards and things like that. The rogue is very good at control, sudden, tense damage. Pretty cool stuff. Let's see. Now, they went through quite a lot of the history of the game and how they prototyped and stuff like that. I'm not really going to talk about all of that. So let me move on here. Yeah, one of the cool things they mentioned is that they also tried. They had a discussion about how they make new cards, and one of the things that they said they like to do is create cards that enable player stories. Type of things where you go to your buddy and you say, "Damn, you won't believe what happened to me when I played this deck today." And I'm going to read you one of the examples that they gave because it's quite funny. They heard about Noxious, who had the Millhouse Manastorm. And if you don't know what Millhouse Manastorm is, it's a 2-cost card. It's a 4/4 2-cost mana card, which sounds awesome, but it has a serious downside. Its battle cries: enemy spells cost 0 next turn. Yeah. So you drop this on turn 2 or turn 1 if you've got the coin, because really you want to play this as early as possible, but your opponent can then play every spell that they have for nothing. You know, so it's a double-edged sword. You get a 4/4 out on turn 1 or turn 2, which is nice, but might not be so nice. So Noxious did that. Used the coin to play Mana Storm on turn 1, and then his opponent played 2 Thought Steals. Yes. And then a Mind Vision. Yes. And this is all for free, remember. So, and Noxious had been playing a priest at the time as well, and had copied a Mind Games from Noxious, so decided to play that. And if you know what Mind Games, then Mind Games pretty much pulls out a card from your opponent's deck and puts it onto the battlefield on your side. So his opponent played Mind Games and pulled out Ragnaros. So, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that they, as an example, that they said they like to hear about. These player stories where, you know, weird things happen because these cards' effects are so, you know, different and odd. They also talked about how they balance the game, and I'm not going to go into too much detail about that, but they pretty much, you know, they're always looking to balance the game in different ways, and how balance, maybe I should give you this example anyway, how balance can affect things in ways you don't even, you know, realize. So the example that they gave, I'm going to go for it, is the Acolyte of Pain. So Acolyte of Pain, right now, is a 1/3 3-cost card that whenever it takes damage, you draw a card. Now, apparently in the alpha, inside Blizzard, when they were playing it, it was a 2/4, not a 1/3. Now, why that makes a difference is that apparently it was so powerful for card draw that everybody had it in their deck. You know, it was so powerful that not having it in your deck was a bad idea. So what that ended up doing was that because everybody was playing Acolyte of Pain, the only real way to mitigate the Acolyte of Pain early enough in the game was to include a lot of silence in your deck. So everybody was including silence. But because silence was completely nullifying Acolyte of Pain so easily, everybody started complaining to the Hearthstone dev team that silence was overpowered, not Acolyte of Pain. Because now Acolyte of Pain was completely useless because everyone was just silencing it. So what they ended up doing was they changed it to this 1/3. And that eventually, you know, that made silence not seem quite as overpowered as it was. So, you know, it's just an example of how one card can have such a knock-on effect that it affects the balance of other stuff, and you don't even realize necessarily how that balance is affected, you know. So it's kind of interesting to see that kind of scenario as well. Now, yeah, we're getting into one of my discussion topics that I like to talk about because so many people disagree. God, I've missed you, coffee. Anyway, alrighty. So, one thing that they gave us some stats. And I've always been of the opinion, before I actually talk about the exact stats that they gave us, I've always been of the opinion that Hearthstone is not a pay-to-win game. And if you've not seen any of my other previous videos or articles I've written about that, or listen to the podcast, Hearthstone Elite Podcast, you might not understand why I say that. The reason I say that is there are an absolute ton of decks out there that anybody can play with just the basic cards, none of the cards from any of the purchased packs, and that have a pretty high win rate. Two of the really popular ones are, for example, the Warlock Swarm deck, low mana Swarm deck, and the Paladin Swarm style as well. And those use only basic cards. Not to mention there are a lot of decks out there as well that will use 1 or 2 commons, maybe a rare, and that's it. So you don't need a hell of a lot of cards to build a good deck to play with. And a lot of people argue with it. They say it's a collectible card game, therefore more cards equals more chance to win, therefore it's pay to win. Nah, I still don't agree with that. The reason I say that as well on the other side of it is that there have been people who've posted videos playing with legendary decks, stuffed to the brim with legendaries. Now, if it is pay to win, you'd expect the legendaries to pretty much own anything else. And as these players have shown, I mean, Turtle Biscuit has done this. He's got a 24 legendary deck, but in a recent video he pretty much got Trump, which is one of the top Hearthstone players, was in the Blizzard Invitational, you know, for example, and Trump built a deck around a huge ton of legendaries, and he couldn't even build a deck that even won a single game. He played three games in the video and didn't win a single one. So that kind of shows on the other side of the scale, you know, just having these huge amount of legendaries in your deck is not necessarily going to win you games. Now, I say that, and I believe that, but that's kind of anecdotal. It's not necessarily evidence that this is the case. So, what Blizzard, what the dev team of Hearthstone did was they gave us some stats. So, first of all, what they showed us was that around 44% of 3-star master players have never spent any money. That's right, nearly half of all players in 3-star masters have not spent a dime in the game. Not any amount of cash at all, and have either built decks out of just the basic cards or from what they've accrued from their gold winnings. Right, it's pay to win. I don't think so. I really honestly don't think so. And most of the people who seem to scream about this game being pay to win are either players that are incredibly bad at the game, or have not got access to the game. And that's a general statement. I'm not saying everybody is like that, but if you really take a look at some of the the cheap decks, as I call them, because you don't need to buy any cards for them, and try and play with them, you'll actually see what I mean. They actually pretty damn powerful decks. One of my favorite decks right now is a Paladin deck that I run that doesn't have many rares or epics or legendaries in it. It doesn't have a single legendary in it, in fact. And I win a lot of games with it. I used a variation of it in my MLG tournament, which is another bunch of videos that, it's in my channel. And it plays pretty well. I mean, if it was pay to win, I would have to play a lot of epics and a lot of rares and a lot of legendaries to win any games. But it's not the case. But let me put that aside. I've made my point. I can go, a full video just on that topic alone. Right. The other really interesting thing they gave us was first turn advantage, because there's been discussion about first turn advantage. So because they have the system where if you go second, you get an extra card and you get the coin, which gives you 1 extra mana for a turn, people have been saying that going second is overpowered. And they have stats. And the stats, I'm going to have to trust Blizzcon on these stats, because they can see all of the win rates of the games across the board. So some of the stats that they gave us was for first turn advantage was the average win rate for going first was 53%. Going first, you're more likely to win by a tiny little bit. And that's exactly where you want it to be. You kind of want it to be as close to 50-50 as you can. You'll probably never get it right bang on 50 always, but it's a bigger advantage going first by a small margin. And in fact, they've talked about it before. They've talked about when they've tried to do things without the coin. And then the win rate was something like 60-40, which is just way too big. That's too big of a difference. You need to give players another extra bump to make going second not such a massive disadvantage. So that's very interesting to see. There's actual stats showing the fact that going first has a slight edge, but only tiny. So it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win the game going first, but it is a little bit better to go first, which is kind of where you want it to be. Okay, so they also gave us some very interesting information about upcoming patch changes. Yes. And everybody's changed that they wanted. Mind control has been nerfed. Yes, mind control has been nerfed. So, if you didn't know about this, mind control, if you don't know what mind control is, it's a priest card that lets you take complete control of an enemy minion. And it costs 8 mana. Right now in the game it costs 8 mana. There's been a lot of crying and screaming and so on everywhere, on the forums, you name it, about the fact that it's just overpowered. The reason for this, if you think about it, you pay 8 mana and you can steal the enemy's card and you keep it forever until it dies. So that's a pretty nice card to have. And pretty much every priest deck always has mind control in it, which when you play against a priest kind of limits your options, because now you're getting close to 8 mana and you've got this fantastic 8 cost card that you want to use. Are you going to use it? I mean, if every priest deck pretty much always has mind control, you can kind of bank on the fact that that priest deck is going to have mind control in it. Are you really going to drop that 8 mana cost card? Well, what they've done now is they've bumped up the mana cost to 10. So now mind control costs 10 mana. You've got to wait till turn 10 to use your mind control. I don't think it was the right move. I don't think that change was the best that they could do. The reason I say that is that all that does is it now delays the use of mind control. It doesn't remove it from a priest's options. Priests will probably still always include mind control in their decks. Priest is almost always a mid to late game style of play. There's very few priest decks that can work with a very aggro, low mana cost style of play. Priests are always up until the mid to late game. So 10 mana doesn't matter, because if it was 8 mana, all you can do is steal your opponent's minion and heal yourself or one of your own minions. Now you just can't do that heal. Big deal. The only difference that this makes now is if you're playing against a priest and you want to play an 8 mana cost card, you've got 2 turns to make use of it before he'll steal it, which kind of forces your hand. If you're going to play something, you've got to use it and kill it off before he can take it on turn 10. Yeah, it's definitely a nerf, so it does change the game a bit. It's not that big a nerf. Yeah. We'll have to see how this pans out, because I might be completely wrong. Again, this might be one of those changes that completely, that for a lot of priests removes mind control completely from their decks now that it's 10 mana. And that would be a great thing if that happens. If it's a card that might or might not be included, then you've got more chance of being able to use your bigger minions. So it might work out. We'll have to wait and see. I personally don't think that it's really that big a deal. The other nerfs that they are introducing, if you're not aware of the kind of metagame in Hearthstone right now with Hunters, there's a very popular build at the moment with Hunters, the one-turn kill deck. And this is a basic idea where around about turn 7, as a Hunter, you'll drop something like the Starving Buzzard. Now, the Starving Buzzard is a card that if it's out, whenever you drop another beast card, you'll draw another card from your deck, which is pretty powerful. So what ends up happening is these hunters will, for example, keep accumulating cards, picking off enemy minions here and there where they can with their clearance abilities, doing a bit of damage every now and then to the opponent. And then around turn 7, they'll go ahead and drop the Starving Buzzard, which is 2 mana. Then they'll drop, for example, the Direwolf Alpha, I think it is. I might be wrong on that. But anyway, the wolf that buffs all the beasts to give them extra attack, which will draw a card. Then they'll have their deck will be stuffed full of 1 mana cost, maybe some 2 mana cost beasts. So then you drop a 1 mana cost beast, like the little. I keep forgetting these card names. Damn you! There's the little 1/1 that has Wind Fury for 1 mana. Oh damn! Pardon me. Yeah. Then they drop, the boar, and they'll drop a bunch of these 1 mana cost minions, and if they have extra mana left, maybe at the end they'll drop a 2 mana cost card like the hyena. Then what they do is they save themselves 1 mana at the end for Unleash the Hounds and win. That's it. They win the game, because Unleash the Hounds, if you don't know what it does, it gives all your beasts +1 attack and charge. So they've just put a whole string of these 1 mana cost minions out, and they've been able to keep putting them out because they keep drawing more of them. And with the last mana on the turn, they'll hop out this Unleash the Hounds, which gives them +1 attack and charge. And especially with that little 1/1 Wind Fury, that is essentially 4 damage right there. And everything else does, everything else there does 2 minimum. That's pretty potent. So what they felt is the crux of that sort of overpowered style of play is the Starving Buzzard for one, and Unleash the Hounds, and they're nerfing them both. But they've only given us information on Starving Buzzard. What they're doing to Starving Buzzard is they're making it a 2/1. Right now it's a 2/2. I don't see the point, to be perfectly honest, because the point of the Starving Buzzard is that you play it and kill your opponent on the turn that you play it. If it's 1 health, it really doesn't make a difference. But I think that nerf is more in line with other fixes for the Hunter classes in general, because having a 2/2 for 2 that lets you draw cards for every beast you drop is kind of strong. It is quite a strong card. That making it a 2/1 means that if your opponent is not playing the 1-turn kill deck, it is a bit easier to pick off the Starving Buzzard. That's really, I think, where they're going. The Starving Buzzard nerf isn't necessarily for the 1-turn kill deck. However, Unleash the Hounds is, but they haven't told us what they're going to do to nerf that. They've said that they're looking at a lot of different options. The one option that I can see simply is just make it cost 2 mana instead of 1. It's quite a powerful card for 1 mana. So making it cost 2 is a hell of a lot better. It just kind of ties up that 1-turn kill option, because now you'd need 4 mana, 2 for the Buzzard, 2 for the Unleash the Hounds, and you've only got 3 left to play with between that. So that kind of helps mitigate that whole problem with the one-turn-kill hunter deck a bit. It makes it a bit easier to manage. So those are the basic card changes that they're making with the patch. The other changes, which are quite exciting, is their ranking systems. So we reported incorrectly on Hearthstone Elite that it's a brand new mode, but it's not. What they're doing is they're taking the current, pre-constructed deck play mode, and they are rehashing it a little bit, because one of the problems that I found playing the play mode, the ranked mode, is you don't get much feedback. You don't. I'm stuck at a point now, and my wife as well. I'm stuck at a point now where I'm in a ranking. I'm a 3-star diamond, and I've been playing a lot of games, winning a fair amount of them, and I'm not ranking up, and I can't understand why. I don't see what my barrier is to get to the next ranking. I don't understand why I'm stuck at this point. It just doesn't tell you this. It doesn't tell you what your goal needs to be to get to that next ranking. My wife at the moment is stuck at, I think it was 1-star platinum, and she's only been playing a few weeks, and she's now a bit fed up with playing the game because she's not getting any feedback. She can't understand why she's not getting to the 2-star and the 3-star. I mean, it's not ideal. You don't understand why you're not ranking up, so they're changing it. Bloody good news. Awesome news. I'm so happy about this. Now, it's a little tricky to explain. I'm going to see if I can find a picture of that new ranking system. Maybe I can show you this, because it's a little tricky to understand what this means without seeing a picture of it. Now, I'm going to try and describe it before I find the picture. The basic idea is that... let me get some more coffee. Throat's scratchy. No picture there. Damn it. Okay. Let me try and describe this. The basic idea that they are having... I might just find it here, actually. No, the basic idea that they've got... Okay. Right now there's a system where you've got the different ranks that you go up, and you can get three rankings within those sub-rankings. Journeyman, Apprentice, Copper, Gold, Silver, Platinum, Diamond, and Masters. And each one of those you go through, Gold 1-star, Gold 2-star, Gold 3-star. But those are all based off of wins. You'd never know how many wins you actually need to get to the next sub ranking. All you know is that when you hit 3 stars, your next rank up will be into the next main rank. Now, they're changing that, and they're having now, instead of just those few major ranks, they're having 25 ranks in all kind of represented with a sort of card portrait in the game. The difference is that each of those main rankings, those 25 main rankings, also has 6 little stars associated with it. Now, when you win a game, you get a star. And if you win a second game, you get a second star. If you lose a game, you lose a star. As soon as you get to 6 stars, you win another game, bang, you're up into the next ranking. Now you've got to get another 6 stars to go to the next ranking, another 6 stars to go to the next ranking. Now that gives you proper feedback. I can be playing and I can go, I'm ranked 23 right now, I need 2 more stars to get to the next ranking, let me go for it. I like the idea that it ranks down and up based on wins and losses, so if you're a player that is consistently winning quite well, you're going to be ranking up. Perfect, makes sense. One thing that they're also doing with this wonderful feedback is that you can now, and I'm not seeing a picture to show you guys, sorry. One cool thing that I'm seeing hang on, sorry. The other cool thing that they're doing with this is they are doing a ranking reset once a month. It doesn't reset your MMR, so that's quite nice. I mean, your MMR is your skill level, and is how they match, matchmaking ranking or rating, depending on who you talk to, and that's what matches you against other players of your similar skill. So that doesn't get affected. But what it does do is it resets everybody to rank 25, and you've got to work your way back up again. But they also have a Legends ranking. So once you get to the Legends ranking, you can never be knocked out of it. Really nice. And even there, what they're going to do is there's a special sort of legendary gem color, sort of orangey like legends in World of Warcraft. but it has your rating in Legends as a number on it, which is nice. So you can see where in Europe or the US you're ranked in your region. Very nice. I love this, the feedback you get for your rankings, and that I think is a really awesome change that they're making. What I tend to worry about is if people can change, beat the system and just play an absolute ton of games always and always get to the top ranking. There's always something to be careful of with the ranking system where you don't want it just to be about the quantity of games. Now, thankfully, because the system has the rank down if you lose, that might not be the case, because if you're an intermediate-ish player, you might get to, say, rank 8 or 10 and get stuck there because the players are so good now that you can't really rank up. Every time you win a couple of games, you lose a couple. Oh, damn, pardon me. Every time you win a couple of games, you lose a couple of games. So that might help balance that out. But yeah, the new ranking system that got in place for pre-constructed is absolutely awesome. What did I put in this coffee? Yeah, it's absolutely awesome. Like it a lot. It's going to help the game a lot because, again, like myself and my wife, now we won't feel like we're wasting our time playing the game because we can see our ranking going up and down as we win in these games. Yeah, good stuff. Okay. So, the next thing you want to talk about. They're also changing Arena a bit. And the Arena's not getting a lot of changes. It's really, because right now it's got the nine ranks that you can get, the 9 different types of keys depending on how many games you win. They're bumping that up to 12, which is kind of cool, with 3 new keys, Molten, Frost, and something or other else. If you care about the names, I'm sure you can find them somewhere, but that's not important. There's 3 new keys with even more loot now that you can get for winning, which is kind of cool because there are a lot of really good Arena players, and I'm not one of them. For some reason, I really suck at Arena. But yeah, there are a lot of players who get to 9 and haven't lost a single game, and it'd be nice to give them something more to work for. Make your Arena games, last a bit longer if you're a really good player, which is awesome. I'm glad for that, and I'm looking forward to playing more Arena with these extra levels and seeing how well I might do or might not. Yeah, so wow, there's been a lot of changes in the game that they've announced, and yeah, like I said, what I like to hear about is their philosophies, how they think about what they're doing to the game, when they need to make changes, how they come to decisions based on their philosophy of the game and things like that. They're keeping it simple for everybody, keeping it fun for everybody, whether you win or lose, but making sure there's depth with the cards. Awesome. That's exactly what I want to hear. And, oh yes, nearly forgot. One of the other things they talked about is expansions, and they will be doing expansions apparently. Now, the problem with expansions that I've always thought about is expansions drop a bunch of new cards into the game, right? How do you get them? Do you buy an expansion pack? Yeah, that doesn't make sense. How do you acquire these cards and still have a business model on top of it? Now, I'm not entirely sure because they didn't describe it very clearly, I thought, in the dev chat about how the expansion is going to work. But their basic idea is stuff like introducing a new mode called Adventures, which is pretty much like a single-player campaign. So if you, if the expansion comes out and you've got these adventures that you can play against like AI opponents and what have you, and when you win these games against these AI players, you get cards for it from the expansion. Now, they seem to indicate that all the new cards will be coming through these adventures, but I'm not entirely sure about that. They didn't explicitly say that some cards will be added into the expert decks. It sounds like what they might be doing is... Okay, let me back up a little bit, because they also discussed the idea of 3 different types of players for Hearthstone. The hardcore player, like yours truly. The casual player, the guy who kind of picks up the game every now and then and plays a bit and what have you. And the thrifty player, the player who doesn't want to spend a ton of money in the game, will kind of just build their collection up as they get in-game gold. Now, what they're aiming for is to build an expansion to match all 3 of those players, and the idea is that the hardcore player has no problem really picking up new mechanics. Even if you start flooding a ton of new mechanics really quickly into the game, they will be okay. The problem is the casual player will not so much. The casual player Might get a couple of new cards with some new mechanics and be spending some time getting used to that and playing that. But if you stop pumping out a ton of them, they're going to go, whoa, 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 whoa. I don't know what's happening here. You guys are making this, there's just too much new stuff going on here. I don't know what's going on. And the thrifty players on the other side of the coin, where they just can't get the cards quickly enough, for the mechanics. So their basic idea is to build these adventures in a way that kind of covers all three of those players, because the hardcore players would go through those adventures, super fast. Get all the new cards, because they don't care. They can understand mechanics. They know, they've played lots of CCGs before. They understand these kind of games really well. The casual player can do an adventure at a time, one a day, as they feel like it. And as they finish the adventure, they get these new cards with mechanics, and they can start learning how to play with them. And the adventures themselves can actually be built in a way that your opponent has those cards, and it helps you learn about those mechanics as your AI opponent is playing them, which is kind of cool. So it's a really nice way to keep people sort of educated and informed about the new stuff. And it's great for the thrifty player because they're getting cards for free, essentially. I'm not sure if it's free, though. That's the thing, they didn't give a ton of information about how. I think it's because they're still working on ideas about how to do expansions. And this is just one of those ideas that they like more than the others they've got, but they're still working on the details. We'll have to see. My concern is that if they don't do expansions in a way that provides them income, people need to spend money on the game for it to survive. That's just a reality. Blizzard has to make an income from this game that covers their dev costs and maintenance costs and hosting costs and all these things that cost them money in order to justify keeping the game going. If they don't, it's going to close. And that's the last thing we want. I mean, you're watching this because you love Hearthstone. We want it to stay alive. So what I think they're going to end up doing is these adventures will have some cards that you get for free in them that help introduce you to any new mechanics that might be in this expansion. And then there will be other cards that you can only get through the expert packs. But I can see them building the adventures so that if you get the cards through the adventures, we've got traffic. If you get the cards through the adventures, then it helps you flesh out your basic decks to keep up with the people who do buy cards, so that it doesn't become a pay-to-win scenario. Okay. That's the basic idea that I've got about these expansions, that not all new cards will be in these adventures, but a large portion of them will, that gives you the mechanics to play within your own decks, which is kind of cool. So I think that about covers everything I wanted to talk about with the stuff from BlizzCon. Yeah, that's pretty much it. There's a couple of other interesting little things. There are going to be golden hero portraits that you can get when you get to level 60, I think it is. And I'm going to be getting a new card because I had virtual ticket. Oh yeah, the Golden Elite Tauren Chieftain. Yes, ETC himself. I will be getting that card. It's really cool. If you can get a video to watch what that does, it's pretty nice. I cannot actually show you video about BlizzCon on here because Blizzard would hunt me down and kill me. They don't want people to bypass their restrictions and stuff. So I might actually be able to show you a picture of the kind of thing that ETC does. No, I can't. Let's see. Hearthstone, ETC. Elite Tauren Chieftain. Let's see if I can find it. I mean, if I'm Googling for it, you guys can find it too. Geez, okay. Yeah, it's difficult because people just aren't allowed really to show too much about what happened at BlizzCon. Okay. Actually, that's not a bad picture to show you guys. Let me add that in quickly. Let me just save this. Okay. And we should be able to get this up for you shortly. Oh, come on, where are you now? There you go. Now you should be able to see that. The Elite Tauren Chieftain, yes. So you can see Battlecry give both players the power to rock with Power Chord card, and people get the Power Chord card. That is pretty nice too. Pretty nice. So basically when you play this card, and maybe here, basically when you play this card, it's a 5/5 for 5, which is pretty cool, but it also gives both players a power to rock card. One of them could be summon a random horde warrior, deal 4 damage and draw a card, or summon a 3, 4, or 5 1/1 Murlocs. Pretty nice if you're running a Murloc deck, yeah. That's assuming, because this is all random, obviously. it depends on whether you actually get this or not, so, yeah. Okay, so you guys saw the Elite Tauren Chieftain. Pretty sweet little card, and I don't think there's any other way to get it except having gone to Blizzcon or watched the virtual thingy stuff, yeah. Alright, so I think that's going to wrap me up, guys. Thanks so much for watching. There isn't really anything else to talk about. Pretty excited about the future of Hearthstone and where things are going because of the dev chat that was on. Remember, if you want to get the blah blah blah, go to hearthstoneelite.com, click the Blizzard Live tab that's in there, and you can go ahead and read the live blog, you know, that I put together as it was happening. Otherwise, if you have any comments or things, I mean, if you disagree with me about anything, feel free. There's a comment section down below. I answer every single one of my comments. I always do. Well, I try to. For now. Before my channel gets like super busy. Then I might not have the time. But yeah, feel free to comment and let's discuss things. If people disagree and have a good reason for disagreeing, I love debating and talking about things. Yeah, thanks so much, guys. Feel free to subscribe, hit me up on Twitter, subscribe to my Google+, comments, all that good stuff. And I'll see you next time. Another video will be coming soon. Bye!